Welcome to this week's live stream with RumCask. I'm here with Indy Anand, and he has Shawn Martin and Bahama Bob Leonard this week from Papa's Pilar to take you inside production and innovation at their Key West distillery. So real quick before I turn things over to Indy, Shawn, and Bob, I'm Will Hookinga from Zavvy.co, and just want to point out a couple ways you can interact with them over the course of the live stream. I see, some familiar faces here, but if you're joining us for the first time, you'll see a chat box on the right. Go ahead and let us know where you're tuning in from, where you're joining us from. And then if you have a question at any point during the presentation, you'll see a little button at the bottom of your screen that says Ask a Question. That's the best place to put it. I'll be keeping an eye on those and relaying them over to Indy so they can address those questions at the end of the presentation. And last but not least, please invite your friends to join us. There's a share button at the top right, so go ahead and hit that, and you can invite anyone across social media to tune in with us. But with all that said, Indy, I'll turn things over to you now.
Thank you, Will. Really appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your Thursday morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And I'm really excited to bring you this live stream today. These two gentlemen have been actually an integral part and the reason why I personally and the RumCask team actually even exist. So they're actually very important to our backstory. And we were really excited to have on both Shawn Martin and Bahama Bob Leonard, who are working currently in the distillery in Key West for Papa's Pilar at the production innovation side of things. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Real good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks very much, man. We're excited.
Fantastic. Really cool. For those who may not know about you guys in general, do you want to give us kind of a little bit of a brief idea about you guys, about kind of your journey up till now in the rum world, kind of where you started and where you got to at the moment?
Right. So for me, my foray into the rum world started, many years ago when I decided to branch away from the usual, common rums, the Captain Morgans of the world and things like that, because that was my drink for a long time. Always been a rum guy, just not of, the quality and standard that I have now. And just through experimenting, getting more into rum, and then through researching things online, finding these different groups, inevitably I found a really great group of people with Carl Grooms and Rum Shop Ryan, Mike Streeter, and the what was the and still exists, the Rum XP group, Robert Burr's group. Bahama Bob was a member of that group, and through talking to those guys, I just learned more and became more and more fascinated by the spirit. And then the more I tasted and sampled, and the more refined the palate becomes as you do that, I started to grow this really great appreciation for it. And then, got a chance to do a little rum judging. That's where, I met you, and I think St. Martin, right? You and Jazz. And that was a great experience. And so was dabbling around in that world. Got out of grad school. I'm a marine biologist by education. So got out of grad school and moved to Key West. And Carlton Grooms, who was building this distillery down here in Key West, we're a national brand, but this is our brand home down here. Not our distribution center necessarily, but our brand home and innovation center, as you mentioned. And he needed somebody that knew rum and somebody that knew science to be able to know that we can jump into fermentation and distillation and it not be this huge learning curve. And I, needed a more steady job than what I had at the time. So I ended up getting the job here. And then Carl, ultimately, his life took him in a different direction. He's, currently going to fly large airplanes full of people and cargo and different things. So he stepped away, and then I was able to fill into that role. So, what turned into what was an interest that turned into a hobby, turned into a career. And actually, it's interesting that, Bob and I were, as you said, integral into you and Jazz kind of getting together and realizing, hey, we can maybe make a living doing this thing with rum, and how great the spirit is. Carl and Bob, I met Bob when he was the key bartender at the rum bar here in Key West. And he was integral in a lot of my education and, showing me different rums, because he has this vast selection of rum he used to have. So I learned a lot from him alone. So it's really cool that now we get to actually work together and make that spirit.
Amazing. And I also know that the best daiquiri I've still had to this day came from Bob when we were in St. Martin at that rum festival half a decade ago now. It's still something that a few bartenders have come incredibly close to, but I still don't think they've reached your standard, Bob.
Well, that was a fun day because it was a chance for me to do a master class on the history and how to really make a true daiquiri. So I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed being there and meeting you guys and having fun with all of that.
Yeah, it was a fantastic festival, really very, very cool, and in an amazing location as well. So, well, tell us a little bit about your journey in the rum world.
I drink a lot.
Good place to start.
Rum was my mainstay. Back many years ago, I left Scotch behind in the 60s and started getting an urge for rum and just started following through, and spent many years in the racing world where we traveled a lot. So going to different bars, we found, in the evenings, we kept running across more and more interesting rums. And when we got spending some time in Florida, around Daytona and down around Homestead, we found a lot more interesting rums than we ever even realized were around until we'd gotten down into these areas. And then after moving to Key West 15 years ago, I got out of racing. It was time to retire from that. And I started bartending, where I was fortunate enough to be able to get into a very good bar and was able to, the owner, Ann Perina, allowed me to innovate and bring the bar inventory into being one of the biggest. At one time, we were the 13th best rum bar in the world, and we had almost 300 different rums on stock, and it wasn't just a bunch of what we call fill-up rums. These were real rums, and it had real, aged rums, and it wasn't just a bunch of white rums that's, put in. We spent a lot of time developing that. Well, Robert Burr ran across me there one December when he was down here for his annual hiatus from the world. And he invited me to Barbados for the same festival that we did in St. Martin's, the first one, and made me a member of the Rum XPs and allowed me to continue to judge around that, which I did for many years. And I've since retired from all the travel, and now I get to sit here and become part of the Innovation Center and place ideas. And with Shawn and I, we work together as a team, developing new ideas, both from fermentation and distillation processes. We have a very unique skill that we were blessed with, and it's been a real chore learning how to use it and use it properly. But we've worked and we've experimented, and we take each other's ideas and develop them into something useful. We're truly an innovation center here.
Amazing. So Papas Pilar obviously is quite a national brand over in the US. It's not quite here in the UK, but I think I've seen a few bits around in Europe. So you guys, obviously, you're not big enough to be producing that much rum for Papas Pilar's entire distribution. So what do you actually do kind of on a day-to-day basis? What kind of is your role for Papas Pilar?
Right. So, and you're 100% correct. So, on a national and international levels, we are in a few different countries now, and we are a blended rum. So we'll source rum from around the Caribbean, and South America, and we'll bring these rums together, and then we blend them together and put them through our barreling system. So we don't actually distill any rum on the national level. This is the only still we have for the brand here. Currently, all of that distillate is kept locally. There are potentially some plans in the future for us to produce rum to send it up to Lakeland, Florida, which is where our main facility is at, and where we have the large, blending tanks and the barreling room and all that, which is a really interesting place. But as you said, I've got a 300-gallon pot still, and even with the rectifying column, that doesn't, for those of you that know distillation, that does not yield a lot. So for us to to be able to keep up with national demand would be impossible. So we do run the still here. We do our fermentations here, using blackstrap molasses, and we do have our barrelings here. So what we do here is like we had mentioned, innovation in the sense of just coming up with new expressions. It is just the pot still with the rectifying column, so it's not like we can do some of the cool stuff like distilling in a vacuum or anything like that. But we're able to come up with playing with different cuts of our hearts, and then pairing that properly, whether we have a light, medium, or heavy-bodied rum, depending on where we take those cuts and what kind of barrel we're going to put that into based on what we want the outcome to be. And we've got some rum sitting in Armagnac barrels. That's a blend of rums that we had sent down from Lakeland, and also rum that Bob and I distilled here. And we did that merely because I've never seen rum put in an Armagnac barrel before. Not saying it's not out there, I just didn't see it. So we bought those and put that in there. And we've got some other barreling plans and ideas to maybe come up with something that will, if it does well here and it really takes off here, then potentially that's something that we could try on the national market. So that's really kind of our charge here.
One place where you're going to find our rums tied to the flagship national brands is when you buy them here in Key West, because we are a distillery and a showroom. Any rum that's sold out of here has to have a percentage of the rum. So the clear white rum that goes into these blends is the rum from this distillery when it's sold here at the distillery.
Yeah, we add a little Key West DNA to the blend, so to speak. So.
Very nice, very nice. If we want to take anything that you guys do at the moment, the closest we're going to get is get down to Key West, get down to see you guys, and to your shop and buy bottles from there.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want something that physically has any portion of it. So on our national flagship brands, our dark and our blonde, anything we sell out of here, we do add a portion of our Key West distillate to that, and we put that through the same barreling system. That way, the profiles are similar. But yeah, that's the only way to do that. I'm not sure when the actual, on the national level, when they'll start adding any of ours to that blend. But for now, as far as I understand it anyway, it's here. I have sent rum up there. I'm just not sure if it's being used yet or not.
Gotcha. That's quite cool.
Hopefully you're going to see a new innovation coming out that was concocted right here. It's a special distillers and reserve that we've been working on, and sooner or later that we may be able to get that to be launched.
Yeah, we actually pulled it out of the barrels 3 weeks ago, a month ago or so.
Oh, okay.
So we had actually had some barrels made for us instead of using used barrels, and char levels and all that and wood types we've been told are being kept under wraps for now. But yeah, it's a unique blend, and when it comes out, it'll only be available here potentially. Although there has been some chatter about putting it, given the COVID situation right now, maybe putting it out for a larger audience. But that would be 100%, a Key West release, which would be exciting.
Fantastic. That's cool. It must be great. You guys have been down there a few years. It'd be really nice to have something that you could really kind of call your own. That must be really exciting for you guys.
Very much so. We've worked hard with this innovation, but so far this is the first real opportunity we've had to actually come up with a blend that we can actually maybe put out under our own flag.
Right. Yeah. It'll be distinct from anything else that we have out. So it'll be a really exciting project in that way. But I mean, you were here, man. You and Jazz, and you tasted some of the runs we had in the barrels, and that was 2 years ago now.
1.5 years, I think. Now, yeah.
Yeah, because it was the first Rum Congress, and we've already gone to the second one. So it's been about going on 2 years. So some of those barrels are coming along real nice that we were kind of excited about when you were here. Specifically those port barrels and stuff. So down the road too, we're going to have a lot of these single cask release that is 100% Key West distillate coming out that we're super excited to be able to put out in the future. So, but unfortunately, given that we're a showroom and we have tours, not right now obviously, but typically it's an air conditioned space, so the aging process is a little bit slower. But
I can imagine, yeah, absolutely. And as you did mention, we were lucky enough to come down and spend a few days with you guys and kind of see that amazing room, which is bringing back some amazing memories. And you guys look really comfortable, but I'd love for you guys to give us a quick tour of of the room that you're in at the moment, just to kind of let the people see where you are and what you're working with, just to kind of let them understand the scale that you're really kind of working with, or the lack of scale, which will be really, really cool to see how niche it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small scale that we're working on.
Yep.
Which should be interesting. The lighting in here may be a little wonky because we're not, usually doing video shoots in here. But so, I guess we'll start at the beginning. So we have, our ferment. Try to see how this works. I lost you. Andy, you still there?
I'm still here.
Just put me on full screen. All right, so yeah, just the basic 550 gallon fermentation tank. That's double jacketed, so we can cool the water down to control our temperatures. We don't, when we're doing our fermentations, if we want to keep it cooler for a longer fermentation, or just control the overall fermentation to reduce the production of heads and different things that we're wanting to avoid. And then then of course we've got the centerpiece being our still here. This is a Hamilton pot kettle from 1977, and if I can get this gyro thing to work, you can see we have it retrofitted with a rectifying column on there, a 4-plate rectifying column with a dephlegmator on top, which is nice because that gives us, the ability, if we want to make a lighter bodied rum versus a heavier bodied rum that you get out of the pot stills sometimes. This thing had a really pretty swan neck on it when they first got the still, but in order to give us a little more flexibility in what we're doing, they opted to go for the rectifying column. And like Bob said, it was a interesting thing to learn how to use. We had to sort of do a lot of trial and error to figure that out, but once we got it tuned in, we've got it really dialed in now, where we can like I said, make something pretty, not neutral. It's still a pot still. It's not a column still, but we can make something really light and really nice out of that. But we like to make more of a medium bodied rum. You've tasted our distillate, so we like to have that end of the spectrums. We just feel like that's where it's best. Of course, try to get this to work. Just over here behind me is our blending tank. So nothing exciting there. I'll take you over the barreling system, and then real quick, I'll walk back and actually show you the bottling room, and then we can go from there. So this is our tiny little barrel wall. I'm gonna try to get a shot of it. So some of these are actually placed. You remember I showed you this. They were placed on rollers for purposes of I guess theoretically transferring rum, but that's obviously not something that'll function. They actually slide out, which we do use sometimes, but the casters rolling we don't use. So we have 2 levels of bourbon barrels. Pulling the barrel out. We have 2 levels of bourbon barrels, and then we have a row of Ruby Port, and then we have a row of Oloroso Sherry. And hiding in the back there, I actually have some of the Oloroso Sherry barrels that we use for, some of that's for the blending we talked about of our distillate for our flagships. Some of it's also for doing the single barrel release we're talking about. We've got, this is working backwards, but some couple barrels here. These are the what's that? The Armagnac barrels. And then over here we've got the what we were talking about before with the Distiller Reserve barrels. This is actually at the second round that's laid down in those right now. We got the other one pulled out and in a tote. And then we've got some other barrels just sort of tossed about the place where we can fit them. We're a small facility, so we don't have a ton of space. But so we're actually starting to run out of space for barrels. I'm going to just start sending things up to Lakeland. But then just to show you that everything we do here is blended and bottled. So we've got our bottling line here, you can see. So we do, all of that is done here, just operates by air pressure, filling heads and cleaner heads over here. Of course, the heat tunnel and collection totes and all that back there. So that's a very brief tour of our. You can see the cases stacked up behind me there where we did our last bottling, but it's a pretty brief tour. But it's a pretty small place as far as distilleries go. So
yeah, it brings back a lot of memories for me. Really enjoyed being down there for a few days. It was really a very cool experience. Tell us a little bit. So you guys are Papa's Pilar, but there's Hemingway Rum Company. Oh, have I lost you? Oh,
no, I'm still here.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about those two.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So obviously we've been talking about Papa's Pilar, but for example, when we went into the bottling room, and I think on your shirt as well, there's Hemingway Rum Company. So
Right.
what's how does that work? What's the relationship between the two?
Well, we actually work with the Hemingway family. We had John Hemingway, who is the grandson, the great grandson the actual grandson of Ernest Hemingway. But we work with the family. We've had Patrick Hemingway, who is the son of Hemingway that actually grew up in the house down here, as I understand it, during the launch of Pilar several years ago now. So the Hemingway Rum Company is the company itself, which falls under Mahalo Spirits, and then Papa's Pilar is the brand. That's the rum that we have underneath that umbrella. So right. Hemingway, and of course Papa being a nickname that Ernest gave himself when he was living in Paris in the 1920s during the Lost Generation. And then Pilar was the name of his boat that he spent a lot of time on here in Key West and in Cuba, and also a pet name for his wife Pauline. So everything we do is based around the Hemingway family. The bottles, I'm sure they're very, people know what they look like. They're shaped like World War II canteens because Ernest was a war correspondent during World War II. So